What is up, my dudes? Welcome back to the channel. I have two steering columns right here. This is the one that was in my truck, and this is the one that's going into it. This is from my 82 K5 Blazer, and it's about as basic as it gets. Now, the main differences between the two is here we have tilt steering column, we have column mounted windshield wipers, and we have our column mounted high beam switch. Now, this steering column I had to restore, and if you haven't seen the restore video, I'll put it in the description. It was a lot of fun to do. You might learn something, you might not. For my application, I had to switch these neutral safety switches because there's an extra connection on this one that I don't have on this guy. And we want to be able to use the wiring harness that's already in my Blazer. We're going to take this rubber boot from the old one and put it on the new one. It's in better condition. So, let's get to work. I probably should have been wearing eye protection. Oh well. So, there's one very important thing that I forgot. You gotta take the mount off of this one and put it on to the new one. Otherwise, we're kind of just wasting our time. I love how easy it is to interchange parts on these square body Chevys. Well, now we're all prepped up and ready to go, so let's go slam this thing in there. So, if you notice, I got a big gaping hole right here where the old steering column was. If you want to know how to take that out, I'll make sure to link that video in the description. But, without any further ado, let's get this guy in here. Okay, so we just put the end of the shaft in the hole. Now we line up these guys, and boom. Alright, so we've got this guy in place. I've got this switch connected. Now it's the ignition switch that needs to be connected. And we're doing those first because they're up top and they're hard to access. But now we've got that taken care of, we can put this guy in place. Gonna move along this way. This is gonna plug into the neutral safety switch, and so is this guy. So now we have those plugged in. We have our turn signal harness plugged in and the ignition harness plugged in on the top. Now I have that taken care of. This rubber boot needs to go in place. So we're gonna move our insulation out of the way and make sure that is positioned where it needs to be. So I definitely misjudged how much daylight I had left, so I had to stop because you couldn't see anything on the video. But the last thing we did is put the rubber boot that goes against the firewall on. Next thing we have to do is put this plate and this plate on there. You know what? I realized I was totally jumping the gun. If we tighten this plate all the way down, it's gonna make things a little bit more difficult. So I put the top two screws in there loosely just to hold it in place, and we're leaving this plate loose like this. Before we do anything else, we're gonna jump into the engine compartment where we got some things to do. Alright, for our next part, we have this bracket. This bracket holds the base of the steering column in place. There's a flat side and then there's a dipped side, a concave side. The flat side goes against the firewall. And you can see this is why we didn't fasten that plate all the way down. There we go. Now we'll hand tighten that. If you've been around the channel long enough, you'll understand, A, I'm a glutton for punishment, and 2, I like doing the hardest thing first, so we're going to start with the innermost nut and get that done. 15 millimeter. Because the 80s decided they just had to switch between standard and metric as much as they could. Okay, that's down. And just because I can, alright, cool. So we've got the bracket down here. We have it all tightened up. Next up, we got our shift linkage, which goes into this little eyelet right here. And as you can tell, mine are off, so I need to go and put my shifter into park. Alright, now we're up where we need to be. And in theory, everything should line up how it needs to. We are binding up just a little bit, so I'm going to need to adjust this. Yeah, bud? Just like that. Alright, we got this guy bent in a position I think works. We just did a leg over and then down. It's pretty mild, but it gets it off of the header from what I could see. So now we'll just do the permanent install and hope that there's no binding and hope that everything goes where it's supposed to. Anytime you're dealing with shift linkages, you want to make sure that you start up top and then kind of, can't see it, but I'm putting the bottom end into its position down south. Gonna get this guy in. Now we're gonna do our cotter pin. And now we'll go on the other side. I can do English good speak. We'll go to the underside. And then we'll tighten up our shift linkage right here. It's 1/2 inch, by the way. Alright, moment of truth. Okay, I think we're good. I think I am gonna bend this back just a tad so that it's flush. Okay, yeah, that's much better. Now let's get that cotter pin in. Now that part's taken care of. Pro tip, if you're doing this and you have to adjust your shift linkage, try not to bust your knuckles on the exhaust flange. It's just not ideal, you know? You know what is ideal though? If you like this video. Alright, the next step is going to be a little bit different for you than it is for me, unless you've already done this mod, which is probably one of the best mods you can do for these square body Chevys. And that mod is the XJ steering shaft. But essentially, the only difference is the location of the bolt that connects this to your steering column. For the XJ shaft, it's here. For the GM shaft, it'll be right there in the middle. Now, if you want to see why I did the XJ steering shaft mod and how to do it, then I'll make sure to put that up here and also link it in the description. Okay, we've got our steering shaft mounted, so now we get to go back inside. But again, I misjudged how much sunshine I have, so gonna call it and then finish up in the interior another day. Before we get back into this guy, there are a couple of things that I did off camera. I tried to use the old ignition switch that was on this guy, but it wasn't springing back into place. So I went and I got a new one. It was like 30 bucks, not a huge deal. Put the new one in and was running into the same issue, it just wasn't as bad. So I ended up taking off that protective sleeve going over the ignition rod because it was pinching and making it so that wouldn't spring back into place. So if you run into that issue, take this guy out first, and if that doesn't fix it, get yourself a new ignition switch. But our task is to finish this up, so let's get into it. Okay, we're good in there. Now it's time to somewhat put this insulation back. There, like it never happened. Now this next bit is totally up to you. I have my floor high beam switch. And if I pull back this carpet, you can see the switch right there. If you choose to do it, that connector will plug right into the high beam switch, and then you'll have column actuated high beams. Personally, I really like the floor switch, so I'm just gonna leave it. There's just something about slamming your foot down when somebody's driving down the road with their high beams on, so you can let them know that they're an idiot. Since we are not messing with that, we're actually going to go into the last connector on here, which is the connector for our wipers. We have our dash wipers already wired in, and we are going to our column wipers, so we will need to swap things around. Admittedly, as a teenager, I redid the wiring, and my wipers have not worked the best since then, so we're gonna break out the Haynes manual so we can see how it's actually supposed to be wired. Okay, so here I have the other end of the connector switch for the wipers, and you can see we have a pink, purple, black, gray, and a black and light blue wire. If we look here, we have our fuse box with the white wire going to the windshield washer motor. We have our pink wire, which is coming back through here to the windshield wiper and washer switch, and we have our pink, our gray, our purple, our black, our light blue, and then our black for our ground. Then if you look at the windshield wiper motor, we have our light blue, purple, gray, white going back to our windshield washer motor and back to the fuse panel. Now if you have the later system, it's the same thing, it's just you have this wiper washer control module that you plug in between. I'm trying to get my hands on an intermittent or a pulse wiper module, but they're hard to come by. But once I get that, I should be able to just plug it in. So until then, I'll just stick with high and low, and it should be good. All right, back out to the truck. Okay, I know it's a bad angle, and I know that I have a lawnmower going in the background. Just please bear with me. We have to take off this fuse panel, and to do that, we need a 5/16. Now I'll pop all that off. So if you look here, these are the wires that I have for the wipers. And as you can also see, the cables, well, they don't match. So we gotta fix that. Not only that, but if we come in here, you can see these connections are basically garbage. And down here, I didn't even do this right, because as you can see, you can just pull those in and out. Now in fairness, those connectors are really hard to find. But still, I did a crappy job, so I need to fix it. It is no secret that itchy, scratchy beards suck, and you owe it to yourself to take care of your face forest. That is why I use Beard Octane. It's like fuel for your face. You owe it to yourself to take care of your face and be the magnificent manifestation of manliness that you were born to be. To help you out with that, you can use the code TheBlazerBeam10 to get 10% off, or you can click the link down in the description. So I was running into some issues with the wiring because, like I said, I did this back when I was a teenager, and there's a couple of differences between column and dash mounted wipers. I figured that I should just show y'all the finished product, that way you guys don't mess it up and have to troubleshoot like I did. In this corner, this is where I put the wires. We have our pink, we have our gray, then we have our purple, and then we have our black with the white. And those I put in these top 4 slots because there's not a whole lot of slack on the opposite side if you're using the stock wiring harness. If you look here to this white wire, if we trace that wire, it comes to the center of our fuse box, and if we look, that's our wiper fuse. So that is the power that is going to the motor. Now let me show you where I spliced it. Here we have those 4 wire penetrations where they come through on the other side. If you notice, this pink wire is actually white. I imagine the truck I got this from, they just swapped out the wires at some point. I don't know, but it's the right wire, trust me. If we go over here, this is that lower white wire that I was talking about. And this gets spliced in with your pink or your white wire in this port. This port is number 19. So up top we have our gray, our black, and our blue. And then on this switch right here, we have the white and pink, the gray in the middle, and then the purple on the far right side. Now I'm gonna go ahead and take this motor that's not connected to anything and plug it in so that we can actually see how it's supposed to work. As for on the inside, our delay is not going to work because there's no wiper module. When we get the module, it'll go between these two connections right here, and then that will work. But you can plug it into the harness just like it is to make this work. So here's mist. Delay is not going to work. Then we have low and high. Okay, now that we have everything working the way it needs to, we're going to clean up the wires because nobody likes messy wires underneath the dash. Alright, aside from these wires right here, we have everything tucked back. I don't remember if I showed you the ground location that I like to use, but right there is a great spot for grounds. So that's where we have our black wire from our switch grounded to. So at this point you could leave the switch in there, but I'm actually going to take it out, get rid of all those wires and everything, because I have something else that's going to be going here eventually, but that's another project. Alright, 9:30 seconds. Would you look at that? This thing's been through hell. Don't ever let a teenager wire a truck. I don't know what I was thinking. Well, we got the hard part taken care of. Now it's just putting everything back together. Alright, we are officially installed, but we're not done yet. We still gotta function check it and make sure everything works. First and foremost, let's do this tilt lever. Oh, that's nice. Alright, let's go to accessory, and we're good there. Now let's go here. Alright, we're just gonna make sure the starter, cool. And last but not least, let's do our wipers. Mist. And so now we'll go to high. Alright. And most importantly, we should probably make sure this thing turns right. So, we've done that. We're free. I didn't put this steering wheel on all the way, which reminds me, something just doesn't feel quite right yet. Yep, that's much better. Thank you guys for putting up with me. I hope you guys learned something in the process. If you have any questions on how to do this, feel free to let me know. I tried finding information on the internet for myself and there really wasn't any, so I kind of had to learn as I went. I've got a bunch more projects in store for the Blazer, so if you want to see that, please subscribe. And also, if you thought this was helpful, please like the video so that people won't be stuck in the boat I was in where we can't find the information. As always guys, y'all have fun, be safe, make good choices. Have a great day.